welcome back to the Aquifer. I'm Ted Bennett. In this video, I'm going to share with you some keys that I've learned when working with a drafting team to prepare design drawings. In my early days as a young civil engineer learning the design business, I started out as a drafter. I did a lot of drafting as a summer intern for a government agency, and then when I moved on to a larger consulting firm, the office was fairly small, and they only had 5, 6 engineers. And me being sort of a young go-getter, I spoke up when they asked if someone wanted to do drafting, and which resulted in me spending about 2 years doing a ton of drafting. I did all of my own drafting at the time, and I learned a lot about how to show things, how to work on a team, work with more senior engineers, and sort of provide them with options and have review and feedback, and work with engineers in other offices on things. So really, my introduction to drafting was from the other side of the table as the person holding the mouse and clicking the cursor on the screen. Some things I learned is, there's a lot about teamwork involved there. You're working as a team, and kind of communicating and collaborating are important. You want to know what's going on, and you want to stay involved with the project, and you want to contribute. You also want to make sure that the work you're doing is careful. That's what it goes without saying in design, is we're going to be careful with what we do. As far as, the first place to start with anything on a project is sort of the kickoff. You want to know what the expectations are for duration and how much you have to spend as far as time, which relates to budget. There's nothing worse than misplaced expectations on a project where one person is thinking one thing and the other person is the other. So some communication right at the beginning is good. For me, I always try to develop a list of drawings. I want to know what sheets are going to be part of this project, and I want to know what sort of things do we have to pull in from maybe a similar project. Do we have something that we can look at that we've done before, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel? Now, while we might reuse these details, we're going to make sure that we check them, because there are things that are one-offs from other projects that might need to be modified for this. In talking about one-offs, sometimes it's interesting to think about your job in terms of, like, what is the most important thing? Is there some other, like, visual that could become part of your design package that you could reuse for something else? I'm thinking in particular about a river crossing that I designed, and we did a view of the entire project plan and profile. We were able to reuse that in a lot of platforms, public meetings, discussions with contractors, so that you could understand the effects of one change on the whole project. Having that sort of unique drawing in the package was really helpful, because it was an interesting tool that was probably just as valuable, if not more valuable, than the individual sheets with a lot of detail on it. So think about something like that, where you might be able to create something unique to help yourself out. As far as once you get in and you're sort of drafting, I talk about drafting. This is like AutoCAD, drafting, but this could be some hand drawings that you're doing as well. This would all apply to pretty much anything that you're doing sort of pictorially as a designer. The big one for me, and I put this first because I wanted to make sure I spent the most time talking about it, was print and check. For me, a young engineer, I remember going back to my senior designer that I worked with, an engineer with many years of experience, a lot of experience in respect for him. And I gave him the drawings, and he said, "Did you check this?" And I thought to myself, "Yeah, I checked it." And so I told him, I said, "Yeah, well, sure, I checked it." And I'm thinking to myself, I checked it while I was doing it. I didn't really go over it in great detail. And he said, "No, I want you to print it out, hold it in your hands, and look and read everything yourself before you give it back." This was fantastic advice. I took that drawing, and I went back to my desk, and I printed it out and looked at it, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot on here. So there's things that you're going to see when you print it out, in terms of, oh, my hatching is turned off, or this leader isn't pointing to the right thing, or I forgot to move this text around that I wanted to do, or oh, the viewport's chopping off this part of the drawing because I couldn't see it in CAD. That's the one thing, is like in CAD you can't really see what the printed version is going to look like. So that's a big one. Print and check. Make sure you check your own work. Ask questions. As the drafter, you're going to want to know, what is it we're doing here? You could give options to the engineer. You can say, hey, look, you could do this or that. you're seeing things pretty close detail as the drawing a person, you know. So you could give the engineer some neat insight, because a lot of times the engineers can't see, you know, the detail of the project, or maybe they just can't visualize, you know, things until they're all on the screen there together. Uh, as an engineer in the design process, it's probably important to include CAD in your design meetings. You want to make sure they understand what it is that's going on in the project, and they're aware of what key decisions are being made, because they might see something in that drawing that says, "Hey, this is going to be important, or could impact those key decisions, or maybe those options we were talking about." You know, the CAD can foresee issues at their desk that the engineer cannot, and you want the CAD designers to understand the goals for the project. You want them to be aware of, like, where are the failure paths, and, you know, what can go wrong. Uh, Part of the process with drafting always is reviewing markups, you know, sort of changing the drawings, changing things around, making sure that, you know, you're getting what you want. You know, if you're doing the markups, if you're doing them by hand, I still do by hand. That's how I've learned. Probably feel the most comfortable working that way. Write clearly. Make sure that your handwriting is good. Make it descriptive. Use colors and coding. I use red for the markup, and then blue for notes, and maybe I'll use green for some other, you know, the other important feature. I found that erasable pens are super helpful. Those are available online. That you can buy some erasable pens. I think that's a neat way to work, because it avoids using a bunch of correction tape and your drawings getting messy. Like I said, making notes to clarify things, make it clear what it is you're trying to do, and then once you've finished your markup as a designer, go back and re-review it. Like, read it to yourself, try to follow along, make sure you didn't do anything contradictory, you know, and make sure it just all kind of makes sense. And then, like I was talking about communication, you probably should go over at least the key changes with your draftsperson. Make sure they understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, or why you changed a certain thing. Again, they may have a reason for why they chose not to do exactly what it is you were thinking of doing. So it's like verbally going over at least the big ones. Maybe not every single little text thing, but, you know, that'd be important. Uh, like anything, you know, try to anticipate the failure paths ahead of time. You know, if you're collaborating, think about where things could go awry. Speak up if you see, you know, there's a possibility for that. Um, like I talked before, ask those drafters to check their work before they return it to you. Make them print it out. I have a checklist of things I like the draftsperson to check before they give me plans back. And for me as a reviewer, I like to do a backward review on the plan set. So, you know, if I've reviewed it once or maybe twice, you know, maybe that third time, I'm gonna start at the back of the drawings and work my way forward. You know, I think we have a tendency to start at the beginning of every book and read it all the way through, and I think by the time you get to the end, you don't have the same energy level, and so you sort of like run out of gas at the end. And so I think the back end drawings sometimes have a tendency to contain more errors, just because the reviewers never got back there and like really gave it the hard review. So I found that to be pretty helpful. In maybe that second or third review is start at the back and work forward. Just sort of a tip. But, you know, those are just some general things that have helped me in working with a drafting team over the years. I hope you find that helpful. If you have any tips or tricks of your own, feel free to put them in the comments. And like always, I appreciate you watching my videos, and I enjoy the collaboration with you folks in this medium. So feel free to reach out any way that you wish. And I thank you, and have a great day.